Hello everybody, this is Chief Little Prong, and it looks a little dark. Let me see if I can turn another light on. Okay, that way you can see my ugly face better. Um, today's subject is motorhome. Should I buy one? I've had two motorhomes. I lived in one of them for about a year. They were both Toyotas. One was really in bad shape, and I never really stayed in it. It was, I think it was like a 79 Toyota Odyssey. And then I had an 87, which strangely enough was another Toyota Odyssey, and I bought it with about 70,000 miles on it, and some older people owned it, and it was really nice and ran really good and got about 18 miles a gallon, which is very, very high miles per gallon for a motorhome. Some of the camper vans might get close to that, especially if maybe you can find one with a diesel engine in it. So let's talk about them briefly. I've just got a list here, no specific order. Let's talk about driving and parking. If you're not used to driving a large vehicle, Toyotas aren't too big. Maybe 22 feet long and just a little bit wider on each side than a Toyota truck. And at that time they were like a mini truck, which would actually be considered a compact size vehicle. It still can be a little bit of a handful to park in city environments and stuff. Now, another thing that's happened in the last 10 years or so is a lot of cities don't even allow you to park these things within city limits. You know, maybe in a parking lot at a grocery store to get groceries, but it's not like you can, in a lot of places, it's not like you can just pull into any neighborhood and, you know, camp out for the night or something without risking, getting a wake up from the police or a ticket. I guess, well, we'll just go in order here. This isn't any specific order. I just scribbled down some notes. So let's talk about the miles per gallon. These bigger motorhomes, if you get a Class C, which is basically like the front end of a van, and they can be anywhere from only maybe 18 or 20 feet long all the way to maybe like 35 feet long, you're probably going to get pretty bad mileage. So depending on what you're trying to do, and if you're having to move it around a lot, that can be, that can get to be pretty expensive, trying to find a place to park. It depends on what you're trying to do. If if you have an idea that you're going to buy a motorhome and live in it and just be able to go anywhere and park anywhere, it's really not that easy at all. You have a lot of limitations with where you're going to plug in for electricity, how you're going to get fresh water. You've got to drain that sewage tank in the thing, so you really have to think a lot about a lot of these different factors. And again, most of this boils down to if you have enough money, then most of these things aren't going to even be a problem because you can just pay $20, $30, even $40 a night to park in a premium spot where you're hooked up to sewage and cable TV and you've got unlimited electricity. The ones I had never had a generator in them, but you can get generators, and they can be kind of noisy, which might bother people depending on where you're parking, unless you're in a place that's, a certified spot or free camping spots. And you can run that thing, and it'll charge your batteries, or you can probably plug in, an AC, which would be like normal house voltage for like a vacuum cleaner or something like that. If you were going to buy a new one, I would suggest, say if the MSRP is $100,000, I would suggest not paying over about $75,000 for it. These things lose a lot of value. New ones, from what I've been hearing, can really be a nightmare if you have any problems with, because everything like the refrigerator, the air conditioner, there's no lemon laws, at least in most states. You really want to do a lot of investigating before you get one. Like, for instance, how much is your insurance going to be? Because a lot of times when you buy a brand new, in fact, as far as I know, 100% of the time, when you buy a brand new vehicle and you are making payments to the bank or the credit union, you have to have full coverage insurance on it. Now, even if you don't have to, if it's really nice, you might want to anyway in case there's a fire or someone steals it by chance or just runs into it and drives off. One good thing in most states, I think a trailer, if you own it outright, you don't have to have insurance because the vehicle that you'd be towing it with is supposed to have insurance, and that would cover the trailer. Of course, you want to check with your state laws, because those change all the time, and it might not be applicable to where you're at. Now, here's another thing that you want to think about. If you're thinking you're just going to go to any old campground with your 40-foot motorhome, a lot of these places don't take longer motorhomes, and the length limitations, I'm not too sure. I'm thinking 30, 35, anything over 32, 35 feet. I think maybe a lot of places won't accept them. And like I said, they can be pretty intimidating if you get behind one of these Class A. And Class A means it looks like a bus. It doesn't have a van front end or a pickup front end. It looks more like a Greyhound bus in design and in size. A lot of those have the engine in the back, and it's called a pusher, and a lot of those have a diesel engine, which can be good. Now, depending if you live in a normal neighborhood and you really don't have another good thing about a trailer though is that you can unhook it and then just go places in your vehicle, whereas a motorhome you would have to drive the motorhome unless you tow something. Some motorhomes, it's usually the big fifth wheeler trailers, are a configuration called a toy hauler, where you can open up the back and put a dune buggy or some motorcycles in the back, or even a drum set or something, which would be great for me. I kind of like the idea of having a toy hauler style, because it gives you a big empty space in the back. So it all depends on what you're doing. If you have 4 grandkids and you're going to take them with you, you might want to get, what they call a bunkhouse model, which is just what it sounds like. It has bunk beds on each side, maybe a master bedroom in the back, or a sleeping area in the front for the adults. And, if it's just you and your significant other, and, might be better and easier to drive and everything to get a smaller one. But what I was getting to is, if you don't have a good place, to store it, you don't have RV parking, or you don't want to use your whole driveway up and everything like that, you're going to have to pay to store it someplace, and you're going to have to cover those tires up. The tires on the bigger ones are expensive, and you don't want those getting sun rotted and stuff, because a front end blowout is catastrophic on one of those. And even the tires might look really nice and have 60,000 miles of tread left on them, but they're all cracked and stuff. And if these would have dualies in the back, you might get away with putting the front ones on the back and putting brand new tires on the front. If you had a blowout in the back, it wouldn't be the end of the world, probably. Okay, so you need to figure out, why do you want one? Especially if you've never had one, never driven one. If you have this idea that you're going to use this thing 6 times or more a year, and you're really going to love it, that might not be what ends up happening. I would strongly suggest you rent pretty much the model that you size that you think that you want to buy, and you might take that on a vacation and just really not like it at all, or you might really love it and decide to get one. Now, if you are planning on getting one of these and just living in it, and parking on your property as an extra big room, or you're going to take it, maybe you need to take care of your parents or keep an eye on them, because you don't want them to be put into a facility or something. They're on an acre or 5 acres, getting like a gigantic, 3-axle fifth wheeler or something, that might be a great idea. And you just take it there. These things are huge inside. Some of them have 2 bathrooms, 3 TV sets. They're like a little apartment. They're really nice. They can be really nice. And you could just put that on their property. Now, a lot of places, it's not really legal to live in one, and I've seen people go through this before. So if you are going to live in one, first of all, don't tell anybody. Even if your neighbors seem really cool and stuff, don't tell them, yeah, I'm living in that. And I would suggest building some kind of fence, or planting shrubs, or putting a lot of potted plants around it, covering up all your sewage, electrical connectors, maybe putting blackout curtains in it or something, so people don't see there all the time, because people will. I've seen this happen before. They'll call the city and say, yeah, we got some people living in there, and they'll come out and say, you can't do that. So you might want to think about that. Let's see, where's another note? Oh, on new ones, I've heard a lot of stories of people having warranty nightmares. Basically, I think like your refrigerator, your air conditioner, your stove, these are all going to be probably different manufacturers. It's going to be different companies. And the dealer might just say you're going to have to deal with Dometic or Viking or whoever the appliance thing is. Now, another problem is if you buy a new one, I've heard a lot of nightmares of people having to say buy a brand new motorhome, and then, and a year later they've only been able to drive it or use it twice, because of different problems, and it just, the dealer's in a big rush to sell them, but not in a big rush to fix them. Now, and I don't know if this is possible, but I had an idea. If you were going to buy a brand new one, to maybe make them sign a little contract that says if you have any problems, that they will be responsible and have that fixed within 5 business days or something. That might be a possibility, and that might work for you. So yeah, I would suggest, even if you really think you're going to love it, I would suggest, the smart thing would probably be to rent one and see what it's really like, and then try to decide if you would want to buy a new one or a used one. I mean, a good thing about buying a used one is maybe all the bugs are worked out of it. You're going to probably save a tremendous amount of money. Find one with low mileage on it, which shouldn't be that hard to do, because there are a lot of people that buy these, and for the first year or two, maybe 3, they do use it a lot, and they put 15,000 or 20,000 miles on it, and then it's just sitting in their driveway, in that sun and all that weather, just working on it all the time, rotting the tires and getting rained on and stuff. You can get covers for them. I think they're $600 or $1,000. That might be a good investment. And I would cover the tires up with, plywood or something painted white. Try to, preserve these tires. On the bigger ones, those tires, I think they can be $300, $400 a piece, maybe. So it can turn into a lot of money, but I know it can be a good thing. But again, if you think you're just going to buy one and just live in it, I guess in today's environment in 2020, there are a lot of cities that allow the motorhomes or allow homelessness to some extent. But the places where you might get away with that might not be a good place to just be parked. You're gonna be dealing with people that might be breaking into it all the time, begging for money. Just a really bad environment. Generally speaking, depending on what you're trying to look for, what you're trying to do. So, yeah, I don't know. Let me think of anything else. The notes are blank here. Let's see, we covered. Yeah, let's go back to when I lived in one. At a relative's house and at a friend's house. And they both had a couple of acres. I was able to live there for a while and just be able to fill up water and pretty much use their bathroom, because using the bathroom can get kind of smelly in there. You don't really want to use the toilet. Showering's not a problem, really, because that water, although you're technically not supposed to drain it out onto the dirt or whatever, the gray water. But, if you're out in a country setting, it's probably not really going to hurt anything. No one's probably going to really notice. But the times when I was living in it and I needed to go and just, they didn't want me there anymore, or I wasn't working for them anymore, or whatever the case was, I mean, it was kind of a panicky feeling. Again, money's the answer to everything, but so if and I didn't have a lot of money, so I couldn't afford to just go to a place every night and pay 20, 30, maybe as much as $40 to plug in and be legal and not get hassled for being there. So I would suggest doing a lot of research, figuring out where you're going to go, where you're going to park, how much it's going to cost, and how much it's going to cost to get, if you're getting 10 miles a gallon, how much is it going to cost in fuel. And if you think you're just going to live in one, you might find out that, for the same money, you could just rent an apartment and, and not have to deal, with driving this monster around all the time. So anyway, I'm not trying to burst anybody's bubble, but I've seen people, friends and relatives before, that have not had an RV, that talk about, oh, I'm just going to get an RV, I don't want to have a house payment anymore, and I'll just, have my pets in there. And that's another thing. That's another thing I was going to mention. If you have pets, most motorhomes, I don't know about the brand new ones, but I don't think they've changed that much. They're not really insulated very well, so if you're going to leave your cats or something in there, and it's, it's 80 degrees, 100 degrees, I mean, you're going to have some sort of airflow going, which is going to involve leaving windows open and stuff, which means it's going to be easy to break into, or you're going to have the air conditioning set and running, at least, 85 or 90 so they don't die. And that's going to get expensive, because you're going to be running your generator, or you're going to have to be plugged in somewhere, paying for those utilities. So again, it might not make any sense. It might just be a lot easier to rent an apartment and do some traveling. Oh, here's another one I didn't cover is the slide-in campers, which you probably know what I'm talking about. You have a pickup truck, and there's a camper unit where it has an overhead sleeper that goes over the roof of the truck, and those can be really expensive. The Lance is a really good, high-quality camper, but I think they're top of the line. They have one that's almost 12 feet long, which will only fit in a big dually, big pickup truck with dual tires in the back that can hold a lot of weight. They're very heavy. I'd say they're in excess of 2,000 pounds or something, and they're also about $55,000, brand new if you bought a brand new one. But the good thing is that you can slide those things off and have it sitting on jacks and then drive the truck around and do stuff, and you can still have a truck as a separate vehicle. So depending on like I said, depending on if you've got grandkids or if it's just you and your girlfriend or your wife, that might be a good option. And again, you can find those used for a fraction of the cost of a brand new one. And you always want to look. You always want to, if you can, any way you can, test everything. Does the heater work? Does the air conditioner actually work, blow ice cold air? Excuse me. Look on the roof. Look on the roof for any big dents. Look inside up on the roof for water leaks in all the corners. Make sure the shower actually comes on. See if the holding tanks are leaking. Again, if you get something motorized, I would try to find something with low miles on it. And anyway, this is really turning into a long one, and I don't mean to just keep going on. I'm trying to talk kind of fast, but not so fast that it's irritating. But I think this is an important subject because I know a lot of people think, and it's a beautiful concept. It really is. I'm just going to buy a motorhome. I'm not going to pay rent. I'm going to save money. I'm just going to go traveling around. And, and maybe you can, and maybe it will be great for you. But you really do want to think about where you're going to go. Look into local laws concerning RVs, concerning how much it costs to camp, how long can you stay there. Does the city even allow motorhomes to be parked in any areas? Is the length of the motorhome or trailer going to be a problem? And really, really look at a lot of those things. Again, money cures all those problems. If you've got money, you don't really have to worry about any of that stuff because you can just fill the tank up and pay if you have to, as much as you want. Oh, here's another really good thing about having a motorhome, maybe especially a smaller motorhome, is if you're doing some cross-country traveling or something, it could really be nice to just pull into a rest area or find a spot where you can camp for free. And even if you're not camping, you might just pull in and sleep for 4 hours or 6 hours, and you can make meals in there. And that could save you some money. At least it'll save you money as far as eating out. You'll probably eat better food, and you won't have to pay to eat out. And you can, like I said, rest when you want. Pull over, read a book or something, and get comfortable. Which you can't really do very much of that in a car at all. Just without just being exposed. Sleeping in the front seat of your car or something in the rest area doesn't sound very very romantic. But the idea of traveling in a motorhome, I know to a lot of people sounds like a big romantic fantasy, and it could be and it can be, but get a plan, do some research, and you probably really ought to rent one. Oh, and also check with your insurance agent. Say, hey, I'm thinking about buying a brand new 30-foot Winnebago. It cost $175,000. How much is full coverage insurance? And that can also be a factor, unless you're just rich or you don't care how much it costs, which would be nice, but I know most people really aren't in that boat. Anyway, man, this is turning into almost 20 minutes. This is a really long one, but I think it's an important subject, so think about it. I don't know if I covered all the bases. You probably think of some of your own, and I'm not trying to discourage you, but really think about it, especially if you've never driven a big vehicle and you're thinking about getting, the 30, 40 foot, rent one. I mean, you might drive one for a day and just be, your hands are sweating on the steering wheel and you are not enjoying it at all because it is. I've driven big box trucks and stuff before, And it doesn't really bother me, but right at first, like if you haven't driven a big vehicle in 5 or 10 years or something, you get behind a 35, 40, the wheel of a 35, 40-foot big giant box truck, like the biggest box truck you can rent from U-Haul or something, it's a little intimidating. And, last thing you want to do is get in a wreck or, run over somebody or something, because they are very, very different than driving a Toyota Camry. Anyway, it's Chief Little Prong signing out. Have a good day. Think about what you're doing and be safe.